Okay, so this is the backend for the Venmo-style application that I've built. So I built the backend with SQLite3. That's what I used to develop the database, and I used Python Flask to build the API interface to interact with the database. So yeah, so at the start I define a singleton function. So what this function does is that I make sure that just one instance of the database is initialized to prevent the creation of multiple tables in our databases. So yeah, so that's just the code right there, and run it up. We do python app.py and the server gets running. So right from the onset, the table is created when the server is run. So there are two tables. We have the users table and the transactions table. So the users table contains information about the user, their user ID and stuff, and the transaction table contains information about the transactions that go on between the users. And these two tables are linked using a foreign key. So the so there's the sender ID and there's the receiver ID, and they are linked to the users that make the transactions using a foreign key. Yeah, so at the start I have to create new users because when the database is initialized it's empty. So just try to populate the database with some users. So that's the delete request, and what the delete request does is that it deletes a user from the database, and it also deletes all the transactions that are related to the user from the transactions database also. Okay, so that's the post request to um, initialize a transaction. So there is a field called accepted that um, decides whether the transaction has been accepted or not. So if that field is left empty, the input field for the accepted field in the database is going to be set to null, and with that it gives the user the chance to come back later to accept or reject the request. So for this request it's set to true, so the transaction is going to go on. But if it's null, the transaction is going to be recorded in the database, but there's not going to be any deductions, or the money is not going to be sent. It's just going to be recorded in the database, and the accepted field is going to be set to null. So that's the update transactions request, and what that one does is that enables the user to come back later to accept or reject the transaction. Yeah, so over here I made a mistake and typed in the ID of a transaction that does not exist. So let me go back and change it to 2. Yeah, so right there I accepted the transaction. So once the transactions are accepted, the money is going to be sent and the changes are going to be reflected in the database. And if the balance of the server of the sender is lower than the transaction amount, you are going to get an insufficient balance error with a status of 403. So this transaction has been rejected by the sender. So the accepted field of the transaction is going to be set to false, and no money is going to be sent. So the amounts in the database are going to be the same.